18 years. It has been 18 years since we were left in Guilin Cave and we found the replicas of the dragon and the phoenix mirrors. And since then, we've just been wondering, what is the next step in the Shenmue saga? What is the next story beat? And now we finally have that answer with Shenmue III, as is finally here. And in this video today, we're going to be reviewing Shenmue III. And the reason I find it a little difficult to review is because I have to look at this not only as a game in 2019, but I also have to look at this as a game that's been in the works for 18 years. Now that's really difficult because I've seen a lot of journalists and reviewers and YouTubers that have reviewed this game. Some have only played it for 4 hours and threw up a review. Some have played it for 20 hours saying they beat the whole game, which no, you can't. And it's just one of those games where there's this huge divide between the modern gamer, the person who only likes the popular mainstream titles, and the fans of retro gaming and Shenmue as a whole. And so there's this three-way divide, and I'm gonna have to walk a fine line to try and hit points for all three fans. And if I do, cool. And if I can't, fuck it. We're reviewing Shenmue III. So with that being said, guys, I'm Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber and host of the #1 podcast in the state of Hawaii, the Kasanova Podcast. And I also stream every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and occasionally Saturday with the stream schedule right here on this infographic. I want to give a special shout out before I go into this video because there are some content creators I think you guys should definitely check out if you absolutely love video games and you love people who actually have a passion for video games as a whole. Check out Sega Elation. He's a good friend of mine. Dave makes really quality content. He's made one of the most controversial videos, but Virtua Fighter is more important than Tekken, which I personally agree with, but a lot of people don't. But check it out. His channel is amazing, and give him a sub. You know, just, you need to do that. Second person I want to give a shout out to is none other than one of my best friends, if not my best friend, Gamer Thumb TV. He makes amazing review videos for games, movies, TV shows. He makes phenomenal timeline series for everything from Castlevania to Resident Evil to Zelda and more. So you need to check that out. And information for his channel is down here below and up here in one of the corners as well. So make sure you check out his channel as well. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get into a review that I've been waiting 18 years to do. Roll the intro. "18 years ago, I was 13 years old and experienced a game called Shenmue II on the Sega Dreamcast, of which I had to import the PAL version of the game as it was never released in the US except for exclusively on Xbox 2 years later to incredibly lukewarm reception. When I beat Shenmue II, the game, as famously known, ended on a supernatural ending that was a sharp contrast to the realistic overall setting and tone that the game had been portraying itself as. Yet this ending opened the series up to more mysteries, and myself, along with millions of gamers the world over, were left with more questions than we ever had answers to. And those questions built a lot of intrigue as to what direction the series is going. And yet, unfortunately, that ending is all we were left with for literally years. Almost 2 decades. Imagine that. A whole generation of people were born and are graduating high school or are in college in between the time 2 was out and 3 has been released. On June 15, 2015, at E3, the world was shocked at the return of gaming industry icon Yu Suzuki with an announcement that made the world stand still. Shenmue III was announced.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Yu Suzuki.
Imagine the surprise, elation, and for many the confusion of this announcement, as many thought the dream of a new entry would never happen. Ever. And on November 19th, 2019, we finally have that dream made real with Shenmue III. Does it live up to the hype? And does it exceed or fall flat on its face? Let's find out. The story of Shenmue III picks up right where Shenmue II left off in Guilin Cave, where series protagonists Ryo Hazuki and Shinhwa Ling see not only the replica Phoenix and Dragon mirrors that had been worked on by Shenmue's father, but also where the introduction of the supernatural elements in the series, which then abruptly ended with an image of Shenhua and Ryo with the floating sword behind them. And the words, "The story goes on." And that was all we had to go off of since 2001. And while there have been attempts at spin-offs which ultimately didn't flourish into anything more, we ultimately didn't have any resolution or continuation in 18 years. And finally, we get to see the next chapter in this saga. We then are walking to Guilin Village with Shenhua, and in that journey to the village, we are effectively continuing what we were doing in the last half of Shenmue II by having conversations with Shenhua and deepening our relationship with her and learning more about not only her, but the village of Guilin and its people. We end up in the village and are beset on a quest to gather information in order to progress onwards to find more clues as to where Lan Di is, the TU Min criminal syndicate, and ultimately what the fabled mirrors are and their intended purpose. In the opening prologue hours, which are in the vein of Shenmue 1, which in essence are effectively a slow burn of about 5 to 7 hours, we get to acclimate to Guilin Village and its villagers, who all have their own personalities that are unique to them and schedules. We eventually find out that there have been some bandits that have attacked some of the villagers, particularly the stonemasons of the village, and are effectively looking for the Phoenix Mirror, as if you remember in Shenmue 1, Lan Di obtained this mirror by killing Iwao Hazuki, the father of protagonist Ryo Hazuki. Without spoiling too much, just know that the story goes on a much grander journey than either Shenmue 1 or 2 individually or combined, and goes on to have you explore more of China in your search for Lan Di, leading to finally a confrontation with him, but not a conclusion to the story, so fingers crossed for Shenmue 4. If you aren't familiar with the previous games, then there is a story recap movie which is about 10 or so minutes recapping the important plot points of the story to get you prepared for 3. As I've said many times before, Shenmue is a story that is an experience that begs for you to indulge in and engross yourself in the world and in the shoes of Ryo Hazuki. When it comes to the gameplay of Shenmue 3, it is more or less the same as previous entries when it comes to the controls that were improved in the HD remasters, allowing analog input support over the previous Resident Evil style D-pad like controls, which were effectively tank controls, which gave the game a more semi-fluid experience, although Shenmue 1 and 2 were built from the ground up for a D-pad, as in the era they came out, analog wasn't the gaming norm. Everything from mini games such as Lucky Hit, the boxing game from Shenmue 1, and more all play the same as they did in 1 and 2. However, there are some minor and major stark departures from the previous entries, such as needing to make sure Ryo eats food in order to maintain his health gauge, as the flow of time and action such as walking and running ultimately end up lowering his health, which by proxy affects his ability to train and spar to level up techniques and his kung fu level. There's also the complete overhaul from the ground up in its combat engine, which no longer utilizes the Virtua Fighter engine of the first 2 titles, of which I'm not sure if EaseNet didn't have the rights for Sega to use the source code for Virtua Fighter, or if potentially the reason was that the Virtua Fighter engine in today's gaming landscape, save for the Dead or Alive series, would be completely foreign to modern gamers, as there hasn't been a new entry in the Virtua Fighter series since 2007 with Virtua Fighter 5, and then later in 2012 with this final upgrade in Virtua Fighter 5's Final Showdown. The new combat system has a familiar button layout to Bandai Namco's Tekken series, which each of your face buttons are assigned to a particular limb, with triangle and circle being assigned to left and right punch respectively, and with square and cross or X being for left and right kick. And with L2 you're able to block attacks. You can double tap in any direction with the left analog stick to dodge in or away from enemies, and also evade attacks thrown at you by dodging left or right. Targeting enemies in this game is so much easier now compared to previous entries, as in 1 and 2, the game automatically selected your enemy based on proximity and forced you to stay locked onto that enemy, even as other enemies assaulted you. So in Shenmue III, you can lock onto an enemy, and at the flick of the right analog stick, you're able to cycle through enemies effortlessly. When it comes to the minigames, they all play primarily as the previous entries, so expect the return of numerous QTE or QuickTime events to occur. There are some exceptions, such as an instance where you can go to the Kung Fu Temple and train with the warriors there by either sparring with them to increase your techniques and level up your Kung Fu, or fight them to raise your rank by defeating various combatants. You are also able to increase your Kung Fu levels and other attributes by doing such things as 1-inch punch training and maintaining your horse stance for 1 minute, and improving yourself as a martial artist with other various mini games that you can do, which is something that is the strongest core component of Shenmue III, being your journey as a martial artist and walk the way of Wudu, which are the 4 tenets of martial arts virtue, being Gon, Dan, Ji, and Yi. You still are able to take on jobs to earn money from wood chopping and more, as well as gambling with Lucky Hit, turtle racing, and more. And you can even do stuff such as fishing, which is pretty awesome. Yu Suzuki is the father of many Sega classics, so there's never a shortage of content in this game at all. Last point I want to touch on is how the inventory/menu system has been completely overhauled in Shenmue III, where you can now buy items like garlic, fruits, vegetables, drinks, and more to recover your health, and also change your clothes, which is a serious first, as Ryo has forever been stuck in the same clothes for half a year now in game. There are new aspects of finding different herbs and items, and allows you to sell them off for making health restorative items. You can also look into the various moves you've learned over the games, and also check out many of the items that have carried over from the previous 2 entries, such as photos and different items. It's safe to say that Shenmue has easily stepped into the modern era of gaming without a hitch. Now graphically, this game is absolutely jaw-dropping. Do this once in the game when you are in Guilin and further on in the game in other areas in China. Just take a moment and hold down R2 and look at the world that you're in. Take it all in. It's a game that truly shines and looks amazing in the Unreal 4 engine, from the mountains, buildings, day and nighttime bloom effects, and more. The character models for Ryo and Shenhua look very good, and to me look just as good as characters in the Yakuza series, and even characters from the Dead or Alive series, with hints of the Dreamcast era vibe to them. I found the NPCs to look incredibly good and very expressive and detailed, and the animations to be smooth and seamless and vibrant. The game runs at a smooth 60 frames per second to what seems to be a fluctuation between 60 and 30 frames per second as it goes up and down. There aren't any graphical glitches that I ran into, other than occasionally some odd transitions to nighttime where it seemed like the sun would rush down and the moon would rush up to give the nighttime vibe. But this is occasional. There isn't any lip syncing to the voice acting, which to me honestly doesn't bother me at all, as it fits with the aesthetic to Shenmue. But for many, they may feel like it takes them out of the experience, given that this is a game that's released in 2019. When that's become something that's not been an issue for the better part of the last 2 gaming generations. But then again, this adds to the Shenmue experience overall. If you were to compare the graphics in this game to something akin to Death Stranding, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, or even Detroit Become Human, then yeah, this isn't going to be a stunner to look at if you want hyper-realistic style games. However, if you enjoy games such as Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, Yakuza, or even the Xeno and Trails titles, then you will love this game and appreciate its aesthetics and what it's doing. The audio in the game is really, really good, with one of my favorite themes being Lake of the Lantern of Bugs, which for its atmospheric and evoking of solemn emotions from its wind instruments, and honestly, that's what you want to hear often throughout the game. There's one theme you'll hear if you take on the wood chopping job in Guilin, where the better you do, the more upbeat and 80s centric the music gets, and it's pretty awesome. I mentioned earlier that the voice acting is not synced up with the motions of the mouth, and honestly, people may be put off by that, and also may be jarred by the stilted voice acting and cutscenes, as they aren't made in the style of current generation games, but in the style of classic Shenmue and games of the late 90s and early 2000s, and effectively maintain the aesthetics of if the game was made on the 6th generation of consoles. My friend Corey Marshall, of whom I interviewed on the Kasanova podcast, returns to voice Yu Suzuki, and while his lines of dialogue to those not familiar with the franchise can be perceived as somewhat stilted intentionally, it is noticeably a massive step up from what we had in the first two entries, from the aspects of audio quality and how the lines are delivered. Everyone from Greg Chun, Brianna Knickerbocker, Bill Butts, Johnny Young Bosch, Richard Epcar, Dorothy Fawn, Griffin Burns, and so many more did a truly phenomenal job with this game, with their performances. I'll say this, for purists of Shenmue, we will absolutely love it, but for those who judge games purely by modern standards and modern cinema, then you probably won't like it. Okay, so what are the negatives of Shenmue 3? Honestly, it really comes down to a matter of perspective, as if you're looking at the game through Shenmue tinted glasses, then this is utter perfection. If you're looking at the game as someone who only plays mainstream AAA titles or are a bro gamer that only plays either shooters, looters, battle royales, or sports titles, then you won't at all like this game, let alone make it through the first few hours, let alone even through the first hour. But if you are a person who can objectively look at the game in the context of the series and can appreciate the vision of Yu Suzuki and what he's trying to do, and also enjoys gaming that has you learn as you go and immerse yourself in the games, then you will find a lot to like and even more to enjoy and love. Wrapping up everything and putting a bow on top and presenting it to you, is Shenmue a game worth owning and playing in 2019? Or is it a game better off never existing? Shenmue 3 is a game you need if you are someone who genuinely enjoy video games and strong narratives. Shenmue 3 and the series as a whole take you on such a majestic journey that will be with you for generations to come, and will leave you wanting more when you finish the game and wanting Shenmue 4 to happen soon. Shenmue 3 is an absolute masterpiece in game design, storytelling, and thematics, and I cannot recommend them enough to you. Yu Suzuki-san, thank you for creating this series, and thank you and all the fans for hashtag Shenmue Saved.
たくさんの人がもう一回作ってくれで、ゲームクリエイターって若い人が多いけど、もう一回20年後の僕にもう一回作ってくれっていう機会が訪れて、またフルスケールのシェンムーができて、で皆さんに届けられる奇跡っていう言葉がやっぱり合うかなって気がします。
And that wraps up my review of Shenmue 3. You need this game. And it's hard because a lot of people have been bashing it. And I don't understand that. Because if you're a person who loves video games, if you're a person who grew up with gaming, you should be able to appreciate this title. It's graphically beautiful. The world immerses you in it. And I don't get the hate for it. I really don't. I think you would love it if you're a fan of my work, if you enjoy my reviews. You know I wouldn't steer you wrong on a title. Granted, the game may not be for everyone, but if you're willing to give it the time of day, I think you will absolutely love this masterpiece. For me, Shenmue 3 is a 10 out of 10. You need this game, and I can't fault it for anything. I think it's a phenomenal title. And with that being said, if you guys enjoy this video, please give it a like, share it around, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also let's get the conversation going down below. Do you have Shenmue 3? Did you back it on Kickstarter? Do you have the collector's edition? Are you curious about the series as a whole? whatever your thoughts are, let's get the conversation going down below. And with that being said, I'm Mekel Kasanova, Hawaii's favorite YouTuber and host of the #1 podcast in the state of Hawaii, the Kasanova Podcast. I am signing out. You guys, make sure you have a great one. Deuces wild, too sweet, be the elite. I'll see you on the next one. Shenmue is safe. Yu Suzuki-san, arigato.
Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Congratulations, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, why don't you make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share it with someone you think would enjoy it. You can catch me on all social media platforms from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and more. And if you enjoy the content and you want to support the channel, there's Patreon as well as channel memberships. Links for everything are down in the description below. And with that being said, this is Mekel Kasanova signing out. I enjoy you guys. You guys have a wonderful day. Aloha and mahalo.